No. No. I'm sad. This is the third video I'm reading Mimic by Tamora Pierce and not being okay. I know this may just kill you out of hand, I told Mimic in a whisper. If it does, I hope you will forgive me in the heaven of healing when we meet after I die. This is the only trick I have left. You will die if I don't try it. I couldn't even look down to see if he'd open his eyes. My lamp wasn't bright and the trail was twisty as we entered the trees. We came out onto the long shelf of the tumbling river. Women wash clothes here during the day. Excuse me, sorry, there were plenty of stones on the river's edge, big ones the laundresses used to dry out wet things. Some of these rocks created pockets of water. One of the small pools would do for Mimic, I thought. It would keep him from being swept away by the hard currents midstream. I had a particular pool in mind. It might be not so deep that Mimic would drown, particularly if I held him. We would not freeze exactly. It was summer, after all, but neither would we be comfortable if Mimic lived. I started praying to every god I thought might be even a little helpful as I set my lamp on the tallest stone by one of the small pools. Then I lay flat on the long rock close to the rippling surface and explored underwater with a free hand. It was a little deeper than I remembered. I would not be able to let go of Mimic. I had feared that. He would drown if he thrashed, maybe even break his already broken wing. I had hoped I wouldn't have to keep my hands in the icy water, but Mimic was more important. I apologized to the fish I'd scared out of the pool and took a deep breath. It's your last chance to tell me if you're on the mend, before I give you a horrible shock, Mimic, I whispered, cradling him on his back in my hands. He didn't move. I couldn't even hear if he wheezed, the river was so loud. Oh, boy. Once more, I lay on my belly. This time I lowered my poor friend into the pool until only his muzzle stuck out. Mimic gasped. His back arched, then went straight again. I would have thought he had died in that moment, but for the press and sink of his ribs against my palms. It continued when I knew an ordinary lizard would be dead. Whenever the backs of my hands went numb, I would lift one from the water and tuck it beneath me until it warmed, being entirely careful to hold Mimic without squeezing him with the other hand. Strangely, scarily, my palms were warm. Oh, God. Very warm. Mimic's cursed fever kept them warm. This was too new. I wanted to ask Grandpa if he had ever heard of a fever so great, but I wouldn't. I was angry with him for giving up on my friend. Once I had feeling in the hand under me, I would hold Mimic in that, and warm the other. When my eyelids grew heavy, I lifted him from the water to see if I dreamed the warmth of my palms. He was still hot. I ignored the tears that rolled down my cheeks. This isn't okay! Why am I... And placed him in the cold pool again. To keep myself awake, I sang to him. I sang every song I knew. I brought him up twice more so I might drink from the pool, then returned him, because he was still deep in his fever. At last I tried to whistle bird songs for him. I startled an owl into a reply. The second owl answered that one. I was trying to do the song of a lark when a lark did sing out, her voice loud and perfect. Only it was still night. Our larks were asleep. I brought Mimic up. He looked at me and sang like a lark once more. His skin was cool when I pressed my cheek against him. For a moment I could only weep. Please, let that mean he's okay. The next day, oh God, there's a next day, that's a good sign. Ma praised Mimic's improvement, though if she had known about our late night trip to the river, she might have smacked my head. Instead, she let me feed the lizard bits of fish soaked in broth. Then I bound him gently on the harness and took him with me on my day's work. We had to take the sheep to the pastures on the western side of the river because I had slept late. The other shepherds had gotten to the eastern hillside grazing before us, which meant we got the long walk across the bridge and past the marsh. I could have sworn I heard whispered complaints under the sheep's normal calls, but that had to be my imagination. No one who could talk was near us. That afternoon the whispers continued, now speaking of rain. I knew it was silly to heed unreal chatter, but I put Mimic back on his harness and whistled for Bright Eyes and Chipper to round up the herd. The day was near its close anyway, and we had to consider the walk home. As we crossed the bridge into the village, I saw the first clouds swarming up over the eastern hills. Heavy winds blew ahead of that storm. I raced home once I had settled dogs and sheep for the night. I seemed to have left the whispers with them. She imagine what is? Inside our house, the only voices I heard were the ones where I lost my place. Were those of my family, along with Mimic's occasional cheaper whistle. My parents admired Mimic's changed health all over again, while Pang fed him some of my leftover meal. I had meant to show him to Grandpa after supper, but I was too worn out. Mimic and I went to bed early. We went down the ladder in the morning, Mimic in my harness, or in his harness on my back. This is the cutest image! I want a weird bat lizard in a backpack that hangs out with me all the time. Anyway, to find Grandpa eating breakfast with Ma. Pa had already left for his carpentry shop while Peng was still getting dressed. Excuse me, my throat's getting a little dry. Grandpa glared at me from under his thick white brows. I hear it lived. He, I said, gently placing Mimic's harness on my bench. Mimic is a he. It could be a cloudfish from the moon for all you know, Grandpa said. What if it was? He got up and came around to undo Mimic's ties while Ma handed over my lunch, and I tucked it into my pack. Though Grandpa's voice was hard, he was careful when he handled Mimic, and eye-popping shocked to feel Mimic's skin cool under his hands. My friend looked into Grandpa's eyes and gave the sweet, innocent tweeting of a warbler. Grandpa winced. Ma turned away, hiding her face. Mimic couldn't have known that my... What is happening? What is this sentence? Mimic couldn't have known that my dead grandma's favorite bird was the warbler. Neither would he know that Grandpa used to call warblers to her with their own song. Hearing that sound stabbed us all in the heart. What am I reading? What have you done to me? Grandpa put Mimic down, still gently, and left the house. Excuse me, I ate my breakfast without a word. Ma wiped her eyes on her sleeve and gave Mimic some bites of a ham that she was cutting up for soup. Peng came thumping down the ladder. What's going on? He asked as I finished loading my pack. Why is everyone so quiet? Because you weren't here, I said. I pinched his nose and settled Mimic on his harness again. What the hell? Over the next 4 weeks, Mimic improved in many ways. Though his bad wing was still in a splint and his good wing was bound to keep him from trying to fly, he startled me with short races. If either of the dogs, sometimes even the sheep or a few of the lizards in the rocks, started to run, Mimic would be up and running with them. He could go very fast, upright on his long hind feet, if the distance was not a great one. He beat the sheep and the lizards by getting in front of them and blocking the way. That's funny. The birds, including the crow who still sheltered Mimic from the sun as he slept, flew over to watch the races. They would set up a lot of noise as if they were cheering. Bright Eyes and Chipper would always win, given a decent start because they could run longer distances. Then the birds would sing to Mimic as if they consoled him. You'll do better when you can fly, I'd tell Mimic when he had to stop, panting as lizards did in the heat. You know how many times I said it, Mimic sulked anyway. He liked to win. This is unreal. Every day I took his good wing out of its binding so he might exercise. All of the birds I had ever cared for would try to fly the moment they could move the healthy wing. That was why I bound it once he was well enough to walk around, as easy on his hind feet as if he always walked that way. Mimic never did try to fly with the whole wing, though. He would open it slowly all the way and close it, over and over, until I bound it to his side again. Not once did he flap it. Even so, I kept it bound unless he was exercising. I wouldn't put it past Mimic to try to trick me and escape, as a bird might if it could think so far ahead. Grandpa had said Mimic was too heavy to fly, but Grandpa had also said he would never survive a cold bath. Why did the gods give my friend wings unless he could use them? It was hard to wait for the day when I was certain Mimic's broken wing was healed, so he might surprise Grandpa yet again. By that time I was straining to hear the whispers that had begun after the night at the river, but when I thought I did hear them, I could not be sure that they were not simply a jumble of the valley's normal sounds. Okay, so that is really happening. I had always listened as much as I watched. Any slight change in the winds, the sigh of trees and grasses, the rush of streams and rivers, the noise of sheep, birds, dogs, and village might mean some change for good or bad. Everyone with a herd to guard paid attention to the world around them, though I'd heard my parents and other people say I was better at it than most. Peng and my friends only complained they could never sneak up on me. The problem, when I worked to hear all the noise around me, was that too often things combined to make something that could sound like words. How was I to tell the difference between that and what I thought might be berries here, or storm comes? What the hell is going on? It was a month of bad storms, for certain. One day, Mimic and I saw three distant tornadoes touch angry fingers down on the Great Plain as the herds of buffalo and antelope wheeled and ran. That very night, a tornado struck the valley west of us. The messenger who brought the news said it was like a child god had taken a big stick. It was like a child god had taken a big stick and drawn a line straight through through the edge of his village, vanishing after it killed. 2 families were never seen again, and another family lost their father and 3 children. All of us were called to the temple to pray for them and to thank the gods that we were spared. There was a week when storms came every day, making everyone miserable. I tried to leave Mimic at home to save him from the wind and water, but he ran after us, so I let him come. I mean, there can't be just a coincidence that these storms are happening when Mimic arrives, so... He followed as I checked my poor sheep for foot rot. He stayed in the fold with me after dark and sang to the sheep while I treated them, for which I was grateful. I thought I heard whispers in the rustling of the sheep, the thump of their hooves, their grunts as I worked, and Mimic's song. But like as not, I'd been so tired I had nodded off for a moment. Surely I had dreamed that the sheep thanked the ugly lizard for his songs while their human helped their feet. I shook off my drowsiness and concentrated on pairing. I begged extra fish from Ma for Mimic's supper. That first night he sang, explaining how Mimic helped in the fold. She and Pa came the next night to witness it for themselves. After that, I didn't have to beg extra food for him anymore. My parents heard whispers, though. They said nothing about it. What is happening? The day came, a sunny one, when it was time to take the splint from Mimic's broken wing. As if they knew, the sheep, the birds, the dogs, and the lizards who took part in Mimic's races came to watch. I set him upon a rock with shaking hands and removed the ties and splints for good. Every other time I have done this, my patient had flown or run without so much as a squeak or farewell. I examined Mimic's healed wing before I let him go. His claws were perfect. Broken bone and ripped skin alike had healed well, though Mimic would always have a scar where the rip had been. Silently, trying not to cry. Oh, I took the bindings from his good wing and stood back. Mimic shook both wings. Then he stretched them out a couple of times to the limit of their reach. He gave them a few good flaps. Once that was done, he folded them against his sides and squawked at me. Go ahead, I told him. Fly. You know you want to. He leaped onto my shoulder instead. Gripping my tunic sleeve with his hindclaws, he used his foreclaws to climb bat-like over my upper back, till he could drape himself along my shoulders. A lizardy scarf for me to wear. At last he sighed and belched breakfast smells into my face. Was Grandpa right? Was Mimic too heavy to fly? But why did he have wings in that case? I tried something that had seemed to work with baby birds I had reared. First, I had to lean over the rock again and get Mimic to climb down from my shoulders. Then I held him carefully, under his belly, and without getting in the way of his wings, slowly I raised and lowered him in the air. It was not as easy with a creature as big as Mimic. It was the birds' instinct to flap their wings as soon as they felt themselves fall. It was Mimic's instinct, too. He flapped briskly, but unlike the birds, his body didn't lift in my hold. He stayed in my hands, plump and solid. I set him on the top of a tall rock and asked him to fly. Over the days that followed, I tried the branches of trees, other rocks, the edge of Taka Hill Bluff, my bedroom window, and the bridge over the river. I asked him to do it from the trail overlooking the grain fields so he could join the birds that night. He might flap his wings, he might stretch them, he would hop to the ground or my bed. He climbed down the trees head first, his wing claws working like a bat's and his hind feet keeping him from falling bottom over top. He croaked at me as if he wanted to know why we tried to do this every day. He did not fly. We were on Taka Hill once on a stormy day when, desperate, I tossed him into the wind. He glided to the ground with his wings outstretched, ran over to me, and bit my ankle. It only bled a little. I did take it as his way of saying he'd had enough. The same day he called me to the bluff overlooking the plain with a shriek. Tornado had touched down not so far away that I could admire it in comfort. It was close enough that I saw land and a couple of bison fly up around its deadly tip. Ooh, if it hadn't been moving away from us, I would have grabbed Mimic and screamed for the dogs and sheep to run. We had a brief drubbing, with hail as it was. Only those of us in the eastern hills ever saw the storm or felt the hail that day. Us and the cattlemen at the plain's edge. They were forced into the barns that our people had built on the plains ages ago. No one else in our valley even knew that the storm had passed so close. Last we had sun and heat for a couple of weeks. The fields dried. Our farmers predicted that we would have a fine crop, God's willing. We were only days from the grain harvest that morning when Mimic and I woke to a heavy gray sky. It was going to rain again. If I'd had my way, I'd have stayed home. But sheep have to eat. The knowledge that I was going to be soaked again put me off my own feed. I skipped my breakfast, giving Mimic his and filling my pack. Be sensible, Ma told Ping and me. Come in if you think it's bad. She looked worried. Okay, make another video and keep reading.